the Broncos still suck, and the Nuggets are back. We're breaking down the top five teams in the NFL. We're breaking down why the Broncos are so bad, and basking in the joy of a Nuggets team that seems to really like each other and seems to really enjoy playing basketball together, and will make up for this sad state of affairs. Dan, play that hopeful, funky music. Welcome into a Victory Tuesday. That's right, we're here after the Broncos hero Russell Wilson triumphantly led them back from the throes of defeat, showing off Russ magic, Ryan. So I guess my first question to you, is Russ magic alive and well?
Is that rhetorical or?
It is a joke, yes. The Broncos did barely beat the Bears in what was a hilarious come-from-behind victory. Ryan, this team can't even tank, right? When it was 28-7, I was literally like, oh, we're not going to win a game. Like, that's okay. Like, we'll just fully tank here and get Caleb Williams. And then I was like, what are we doing? Hey, why'd we sack Justin Fields? Why'd he fumble that ball? And all of a sudden, they accidentally won a game on the road versus the Bears. I've been seeing a lot of back and forth in the local media about whether a win is a win or if style comes into play with it. What say you as a former Broncos fan, but avid watcher of the Broncos? Does this feel like a win to you?
No.
Where you're like, they came back.
No. No, this is nothing. I mean, you beat the Bears, to be clear, right? Like, this is probably the worst team in the NFL. So this is not a win in any sense of the word, other than in the win column.
Other than the actual sense of the word.
Well, yeah, but I think it comes back to a lesson that we've talked about in the past, but is the alignment of interest between coaching staff, ownership, the GM, all of these people, the interests are not necessarily aligned, right? Like, the players want to play well because they want to make money. The coaches want to coach well because they want to keep their job or at least get another job. Like, Vance Joseph is very motivated right now. Whether he is good at his job or not, the guy's got to be extremely motivated. So to say that they come out in the second half and they start playing better is right. Like, they should, because their coach is coaching for his job. So I think to say that they're bad at tanking, I don't think the team thinks that they're tanking yet. So they're not looking at it like that. They're trying to win games, and Vance Joseph is trying to coach his ass off, and he's doing a terrible job. But he's
doing the best that little guy can.
He held the Bears to what? How many points did they have in the second half?
7.
So,
yeah,
it's the Bears, but like, that's better.
Yeah,
so
it's progress.
Yeah.
Speaking of little guys doing the best they can, Jaleel McLaughlin, that guy, I do think he looked good in a Sean Payton and can have a Darren Sproles. Even Reggie Bush was another guy under Payton. Where I don't think he can be an every down back, and if we have to use him as too long while Javante's out with this, I think he will break down. But in his 3 receptions and 7 carries, he was responsible for over 100 yards of offense and looked pretty electric with the ball in his hands at all times. He was kind of the bright spot for this offense. Do you think he's a player that you go, we should keep this guy? Like, I think there's a role for him long-term in a Sean Payton offense that might not always involve, probably won't involve at this point next year, Russell Wilson.
It's a hard question to answer because I sort of agree with you that his value might be too high right now to really be able to.
Other team might overpay him.
Yeah. Or like, maybe in a best case scenario, you can offload him for a 3rd round pick or whatever,
Right.
that might be too much. But if you could sort of sell high on a player like that as the Broncos right now, I think you have to be looking at doing that, because it's clear that this is not going to be a tomorrow, like next year, this team is not going to be good either.
Right.
There are too many holes. There are too many holes.
Yeah.
So to have a dynamic running back, and I think I agree with you that he is dynamic, and there are a lot of positives, but to have him on this team is a little bit like having a Ferrari while you're living in a duplex. Like, maybe sell the car, like.
Yeah. I just feel like this team is, more and more that I look at it, the more and more I'm like, oh, we're devoid of talent.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, we thought we had like good players but bad coaching, or just a quarterback away. No. All these people have sucked all this time. Yeah. And so I'm just not in the position of giving away someone who I think is good. And I just think in the NFL, especially at that position, trying to find that kind of back, you're going to miss more than you're going to hit. And so I'm in on keeping him. Obviously, Marvin Mims has been pretty good for this team as well. Russ, once again, for those keeping track at home, 3 touchdowns for Russ. What a great performance from him.
He's going to get benched before you even have a chance to win that bet. But, yeah.
I'm not sure about that, but you know what? We'll agree to disagree there. Talk to us about this defense, though. Let's go to the full-out negative here. This is the worst defense by DVOA that since they've been keeping track of it through the first 4 weeks. This is a historically terrible defense. And the thing is, like, if you had played versus like a Patrick Mahomes and a Herbert, you could be like, wow, we went up against historic quarterbacks. Like, those are a little skewed. But this is after playing Justin Fields, Sam Howell, Garoppolo. Like, this is bad.
Garoppolo and Sam Howell at home.
Yeah. This is really, really bad. And so I just think that this defense is maybe even a little bit worse than it appears right now. Once we get into, we have to play the Chiefs here, all that kind of jazz. Obviously, get one more week where you get to play against Zach Wilson, where I don't care what he looked like against the Chiefs. That guy sucks.
Is he better or worse than Justin Fields?
Oh, I think he's worse.
How much? Because Justin Fields looked like an all-pro quarterback against the Broncos in the second half. So what are they going to do? I'm just telling you right now, I would not be surprised if they lose that game.
Oh, there's no game in which I would go in and stake a high claim I think we can be favored. Like, there's no game that I'm going to be like, that's offensive. I can't believe they're selling the Broncos that. Like, I think there's a chance the Broncos beat the Jets at home, 100%. But I also could see a world in which the defense bullies our offensive line. Russ doesn't get any time. The offense looks truly bad.
The Jets' defense is good.
Zach Wilson does enough,
if we're talking about just best unit on the field, it's going to be the Jets defense.
Yep.
So I'm just going to run quickly with you through the schedule. I want to do this quickly. Give me a win. Say something if you think they can win. So you said they can win against the Jets. Let's just assume you say yes there.
I would put 50-50.
There's 2 wins. So we're at 2 right now. Yep. Producer Dan, be keeping track here. Broncos, Chiefs.
That's a loss.
Packers.
That is also a loss.
Chiefs.
That is once again a loss.
Bills.
That's going to be a loss.
Vikings. Prime time.
It's going to be a win. Dan and I are in the building.
Browns.
That's definitely a loss.
Texans.
God. That's
on the road.
I would say that's a win at that point, but I would put it very similar to how
they could be winning that division at that point.
I just feel very similar about how I feel about the Jets, where I'm like, I think it's probably a 50-50 game. So give them one of those. So just don't give them that one.
Okay. Chargers.
That's a loss.
Lions.
That's a loss.
Patriots.
That is probably a loss.
Chargers.
Loss.
Raiders.
I mean, maybe a win. 50-50 again. So if you give them 2 out of 3 of the 50-50s,
you're at 4 wins.
Yeah.
That's getting you a top 5 pick, right? Yeah. So if you're a Broncos fan, you have to be looking at it like that. And that's okay. Like, and to your point, I think keeping people like Marvin Mims, great young wide receiver, like assuming you draft a quarterback with your whatever pick you get in this draft, or you package Surtain and something to move up to the number 1 pick and just get Caleb. Like, there are options for this team. So, like, it's okay, but you have to make every move correctly from here on out for everything to fall correctly and be competitive in 3 years. And I don't think there's any way that you can trust the front office or anybody who's been in charge for the last, 3 or 4 years to make that correct decision. Like, we have not the best predictor of future results as past results, and the past results have been bad. Yeah. So this is a poorly put together team. There are things that you can do to make it better in the future, but I don't trust them to do it. So it definitely feels a really hard place to be.
This is the year of the heat coming for George Payton a little bit, because everyone can see that Sean Payton is doing a pretty good job, like, with what he's been given. Like, people are like, hey, these plays make sense. Hey, he's sometimes just scheming people open. Like, this is fun to watch. Oh, wait, but we still kind of suck. Maybe these players aren't that good.
Remind me of the time frame for Payton too. Was that pre the ownership turning over?
Oh, yeah.
So if I'm him, I'm sweating my ass off right now.
I mean, some people thought he was going to lose his job last year just because of the new owner.
He probably should have. He probably should have.
Yeah.
But, so it's
he presided over bringing Russell Wilson here. So
I honestly can't wait for this, like, rejuvenation of the Broncos a little bit. Like, I don't root for anybody to lose their job necessarily, but when you turn people over like that and you get a fresh start, like, there is something exciting about that, especially if you want to have a modern organization. Like, maybe we shouldn't be hiring 60-year-old guys to run the team, Like, let's get some youth into the organization. And I think that hopefully
I hear what you're saying. I think Josh McDaniels is going to be free. We'll bring him back, baby. That's a young man, if I've ever seen one, who has his pulse on the league out there. Yeah. He can bring us talent like nobody's business. No, I agree with you. It's weird to say this as a franchise that throughout our lives has been really pretty talented
stable
and successful, but since Bolin, I just don't trust anything to go right for the Broncos. It feels like we consistently make the wrong choice. So I'm like, well, sure, we should probably get rid of Peyton, but we'll probably mess it up in some other way. Like,
I mean, if you
what moron are we bringing in this time? Like, you know what I mean?
If you think about the moves that we've made over the last, decade, like, Von Miller dropped to us in the draft because he got caught smoking weed, I think was the thing that the reason he dropped. I don't know, whatever. But and then we brought in Peyton Manning. Like, okay, geniuses. Like, you brought in maybe the second best quarterback of all time. Like, what are we giving you credit for? Like, what are we actually talking about? So I think at a certain point, like, it is a what have you done for me lately league, and this is a what have you done for me lately town, and you have to be successful in that. So I think it's going to get rough here for the Broncos and the fan base. Like, I'm a little worried about you all. I'm a little worried about
like
you
I said, you can tell people were fed up. I think this year they're getting a little bit more of a pass just because it's like we're actually scoring some touchdowns, whereas, like, there's nothing more depressing than last year being like, oh, if we could only get to 16 points. Oh, if only 16.
But when you look at this schedule, where are you getting those touchdowns now?
I mean, I think you can still score against the Chiefs. I don't think you can score as much against the Chiefs as the Chiefs are going to score against you. But
that Bills defense is filthy. That Vikings defense is pretty good.
No Tre'Davious White now, and also probably no Vaughn
we're not
back.
Talking about Vaughn might be back for that game. First of all, it's middle of November, so we're talking about a month and a half.
Yeah, we just haven't seen him on the field yet at all.
Well, the rumors are he's doing very well and going to come back this year. So it's possible that could be a nice game for him to come back in. But then you start talking about the Browns.
If I was anywhere near healthy, I'd want to see Garrett Bowles.
But I'm just
my God, the things I'm going to do to him.
I'm just saying, like, this. We have not played defenses that are world beaters.
We've played really bad teams overall. Yeah.
So I think that everything has to be tempered with a little bit of expectation of regression, and that's a bad thing.
Yeah, the defense is probably going to get a little worse, and
to circle back on what we
probably also going to get worse.
To circle back on what we were talking about last week, like we both had this team 3-1 at this point. Like, we are not heading in the direction that you need to be headed into during the most difficult stretch. Like, you're going to get the bye where I think you should bench Russell and just play me at quarterback. Frankly, like I'm willing and able. So
you should not be willing and able. They will snap you in half. I do not want to see you in a wheelchair, brother. I'm
hardy. First of all, I could take a hit, but I agree.
Maybe
they're gonna hurt me.
Not what's coming after there for Garrett Bowles out there.
They're gonna hurt me, but I'm saying that, like, I mean, the
I don't want to hear you on NFL films. God damn it, Garrett.
Oh, could you imagine the huddle when Garrett didn't block somebody and I get destroyed? Could you imagine just me lighting him up?
Garrett, if I could see less than 3 of you right now, I'd punch you in the face.
The three delay of game penalties we would get while I'd shoot him out.
Garrett, you're known for holding, right? Hold somebody out there. Jesus.
Please cheat better. So anyways, it's rough out there for Broncos country. I don't think anybody's really riding. I don't know.
No, nobody's coming in feeling confident with the Jets out against the Jets here. Which says a lot.
I somewhat secretly hope that Hackett just destroys this defense, and it's just the death nail in the coffin of the Broncos season. Like, put everybody out of their misery. Just free up everybody's Sundays. Like, you're not going to free up mine, but for Broncos fans, that's what I'm rooting for. Free up your Sundays.
Absolutely not. That's spoken like a man without children. You think my wife's going to let me sit her on the couch for 3 hours if they're 1-7, Ryan? Absolutely not.
Well, you have to.
These W's mean everything to me,
working.
Ryan.
You're working.
I got to be like, you know what, babe? They still got an outside shot at the playoffs. I don't care if they're 3-6. They could go on a streak any day now, babe. We got to be on the front end of this movement.
We're going to be talking about it, so you just frame it as work.
Yeah, that's true. Anything else about this game? Obviously, this cornerback room is terrible, and with no Simmons back there, good God, is it awful. And to watch teams just scheme underneath stuff open. We talked about it last week. I don't think I have tons new to say, but my God, our linebacking core is terrible too.
It's crazy because it's
just such a level of suck.
It must be something in the water because CU can't guard a slant either. Yeah. So, like, is something in Colorado where, like, we just can't, like, a wide receiver runs over the middle of the field? We're like, no, they're good. You can't throw it to them there. You can't do that.
It's in the no-touchy zone.
I don't know.
Yeah, so. I think it's because Mason Plumlee plays middle linebacker for the Broncos. I'm not sure if it's the same up in CU. I can't imagine he had eligibility left, but if he did, it would seem like a Mason Plumlee thing to do.
Figure it out.
Yeah. We wanted to now get into, we're a quarter of the way through the season, kind of go through our top 5 NFL teams. I say we both start, Ryan, at 5. I'll give my 5, you give your 5, and so on and so forth until we get down to our number 1 teams. All right? Would you like to go first or second on number 5?
You go first.
All right. Number 5, that would be the Detroit Lions. They are 3-1.
Are you kidding me?
No, they're 3-1. Stafford's not Stafford. Goff is out there playing great. I think their defense has talent. I think they dominate on both sides of the line. I think they're only getting better. I like Dan Campbell as a motivator, as a coach. I think they're going to keep the Eagles honest out there. Eagles and the 49ers with having to have them be competitive because that NFC North is also terrible. And so they're going to stack some W's out there. So, yeah, give me the Lions, number 5. Who's your number 5, Ryan?
Wow. Sorry, I'm a little shook, to be honest with you.
Did they beat the Chiefs on opening night? Oh, they did. Oh, word.
Yeah, they did.
Did they just give the smack down to Green Bay in Green Bay? Oh, they did. Oh, man. Dominant line play out there. That's what's going to matter, especially as the weather turns. I think the Lions are really, really good.
I'm going to go Browns at number 5. I hate to do this.
2-2 team.
Because of he who shall not be named.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a little bit of a swerve because they did just get the brakes beat off of them by the Ravens. But no, he who shall not be named, which is an important part. This defense is also just unbelievably good.
Yeah.
I'm also high on the Ravens, so I'm not taking too much out of that game. Because I think the Ravens are just good no matter what. So I'm going to give the Browns the 5 slot here.
Yeah, they're another team that I think their team's going to age well into the season. As far as like they're dominant on the offensive line, they're dominant on the defensive line, and so even in bad weather, they're going to be able to move you. And they're built around play action and running the football, so that game just ages well, even if you're in Buffalo and it's blowing around, or you're in Kansas City in bad weather. So I don't hate that, but they're just outside for me with number 7. I don't like that Stefanski threw Watson under the bus, basically, where he was like, "Oh, he was healthy enough to play."
Could you blame him though?
Oh, I like that he did it.
Any chance you get, I'd throw that guy under the bus.
Oh, I'd drive it over him.
You even said his name.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that
don't
to me
say
is
his name. I should have
suggests there's bad vibes in there. So that's what kept them out for me. But I agree with you. That defense has been the most impressive unit. And I'm not sure of what's the best offense in the NFL yet, but I am sure that that's the best defense I've seen in the NFL. And that says a lot. For me at number 4, I'm going with the Eagles. They haven't been maybe as dominant as they were last year, but they still haven't lost. They're still unbelievable on the offensive line and can run all over the place. Their Swift looks great. I just think it's really good. And I think they're kind of under the radar as far as they're still gelling with new coordinators because both of them got hired away. And I think their style, once again, just ages so well where it's like, hey, you can't run on us because we have a baby Rhino in there and Fletcher Cox. And then also on offense, their offensive line is just all studs. And so I value teams that can make explosive plays on the ground and then also, because of the play action, go for more explosive plays over the top. So I think their style is just really good. I think the NFC has 3 of the top 5 teams in my estimation. I think they're pretty top heavy. So where are you going with your 4th team?
I'm going to go with the Miami Dolphins. We all know my bias here, but I think they have an incredibly explosive offense, as we all know, in Denver especially. If you need remember that 70-point beatdown that was just 2 weeks ago.
I don't recall it.
And then they get beat by this Bills team on the road. And I think a lot of people are sort of jumping off and just being like, well, it's clearly not sustainable. When Buffalo has just owned the Dolphins at home for the last decade, like it's sort of one of those things that you don't want to excuse it away because obviously games matter and you learn things from them. But I am sort of I'm not excusing it, but I'm taking it as a data point, but I'm not overreacting to it. I think the Dolphins are unbelievable. I honestly would pick them to come out of the AFC right now if I had to pick a team. I'm not going to rank them as my top AFC team, but if I had to pick them versus the Chiefs right now, I think I would pick the Dolphins straight up. Like the Chiefs just don't have the talent that the Dolphins do all over the field. So, yeah, I don't hate the Dolphins. I don't have them in my top 5 right now. I would reserve the right to put them in there when Jalen Ramsey gets back. I think that's going to be a huge addition. I think he's going to be back kind of week 10, week 11 range. And so he's going to have some games to get warm before he could go into the playoffs. And all of a sudden you're going to have Jalen Ramsey being Jalen Ramsey and talking a bunch of stuff to your best wide receiver and saying some unrepeatable things to Kadarius Toney. And that's going to be tough to overcome there.
So, you know, yeah, I think that I don't hate that pick. For me, I just think I saw too many flaws in the Bills thing where I didn't like how much pressure they were giving up. And obviously the Dolphins had played a pretty weak schedule those opening weeks. As we mentioned, the Broncos are a turnstile. And
I thought they were so good, Kyle.
Yeah, well, some of us thought that as well. We don't think that anymore, though. But yeah, I think that they can be gotten to with pressure, and I think that Tua under pressure is still, that height comes into play, and I think you can stop him easier than you can stop some other teams. For my number 3, I am going to go with Kansas City Chiefs here. It hasn't always looked pretty. It hasn't always looked Chiefs-like, but they are 3-1, and they should have beaten the Lions even without Kelsey and Chris Jones. Their defense looks ahead of where it is. Andy Reid is a genius. He'll figure it out, or they'll make a trade for a wide receiver that for some reason, just like NBA teams are possessed to give the Lakers assets when they don't need to, teams are possessed to give Andy Reid offensive weapons late in the season. I don't know why they do it, but they do. And yeah.
I don't have the Chiefs in my top 5.
I don't hate it. It's a legacy spot for sure. I mean, they haven't looked good enough. Obviously, they squeaked out a win over the Jets with
The
Zach
skill
Wilson.
position stuff is just not good enough. Like
It's really bad.
It's frustrating too because everything else looks like it's humming on a Chiefs type level, but they are, I mean, just devoid of skill position talent on the offensive end, and Mahomes can only do so much. And I think that when you come down to like those December games, I don't know that you want to be relying on the skill positions that they have right now. So
No.
I don't have them in my top 5, but I can understand why.
Yeah.
I just have much more faith in the Dolphins right now than I would in the Chiefs. So I'm going Bills with my next spot. I think it's everything we've talked about, right? Like, I think they're probably the best AFC team. I would have them and the Dolphins and then the Chiefs, and I put them in that order right now. So I think Josh Allen showed last week what we were hoping that he would show again, right? He's been a little spotty. He was playing a little bit like his rookie self, like, and he does this for spurts through the season where it's like, what are you doing? Like, why can't you throw the ball to your own players? And it's frustrating, but it's also fleeting. So
Part of the Josh Allen package. You don't get some of those elite athletic, elite, unbelievable runs or throws without some of the stupid.
Yeah.
It's just the way it goes.
And this defense has looked good, and they're about to get Von Miller back. Like, I think
about White losing him against the Dolphins.
And that's huge in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Like, that's huge. That's not necessarily one of those regular season injuries where you might think about it one game where you're like, man, if we really had that lockdown corner, this would be huge. But like in the playoffs, that is going to matter. So it's a tough injury for him. And you felt so bad for him coming off of the ACL, and then and you could see that he knew he had torn his Achilles, and it was pretty brutal on the field. So tough for that guy, but I'm going to go with the Bills.
Yeah. They're my 2 spot. I agree with everything you said. I think that we have to, at this point, we have to say, hey, they're kind of a bad luck playoff team. And maybe they're kind of the Villanova sitting in wait, or the Nuggets of last year, where people are like, well, I got to see them do it before I say that they can do it. It's like, well, that's not a prediction. That's just observation. And can all do
you're
that.
acting like they haven't been in an AFC championship game for like, the last 3 years. So like, what are we talking about? Like they're
it's
very
like,
it's like people talking about
good.
the Nuggets where you're like, well, we went to 2 game sevens to go to the Western Conference Finals. So I don't know what
last year
else
Josh Allen's shoulder was broken. It was, So I just think this team is really good. And if I had to pick someone to come out of the AFC right now, they'd be my pick. Obviously, you just hope they can keep getting healthier, like you said, and not have bad luck. Because I think this version of them is super fun versus a lot of different teams, be it AFC or NFC. Because I mean, that first bit of that Dolphins game where they were just matching each other score for score. And then, the Dolphins blinked and it was what it was. But those first 3 back and forth possessions, you were just like,
they had an offensive lineman.
We're going to both score 60, and I don't think either team should be embarrassed.
Yeah.
Like, it was literally both of those
and I think
guys came out throwing 110, which was great to see.
I really hope that matchup plays out in the playoffs.
Yeah, that's a fun one.
And even if it's Chiefs, Dolphins, like, I just hope that the Dolphins get to play one of those teams in the playoffs. Because it'll be so interesting to see if Mike McDaniels could actually make that happen in the playoffs. Like, Can you actually just scheme these guys open all the time? Right. That'd be great, but
yeah, we'll see. Yeah. So who's your number 2?
I am gonna go with the Eagles. I've got 2 NFC teams, top 2 here. I think they're the best conference. I agree with everything you were talking about. I think, Jalen is just
little step back this year.
Yeah, but I think it's a little bit hangover-ish. I think we're about to witness this a little bit with the Nuggets, where the best players sort of look good and they look good in spurts, but it's not consistent. And I think it's just one of those things where, like, that hangover, it's real. So I think they're 4-0, right? Like, it's not like they're playing bad football. So I think that defense is still really good. Their skill position guys, like A.J. Brown, is otherworldly. I don't know what you do against him.
He just obliterated the Commanders. He was like, "Oh, this is a cute lead you have."
Yeah.
You guys made me mad, though.
And they haven't played anybody yet. So it'll be interesting to see how their season progresses. This is a little bit of a legacy pick for me, right? Like, they haven't really impressed me on when I've watched them, but at a certain point, they're 4-0 and they lost in the Super Bowl last year. So having them outside the top 5 felt a little funny. So I put them at 2.
That's fair. Yeah. NFC team, they're not my number 1. I assume they're not yours.
Neither. I've got another NFC team number 1.
Yeah, I know, but I assume we're both saying 49ers?
Yes. Yeah.
So before we get into the 49ers, who have been otherworldly, we both left the Cowboys out.
Yeah.
3-1 team, obviously lost a corner.
Is that your next team?
For me, the Dolphins would be 6.
Okay, yeah.
And then
because who am I missing that you have? Oh, the freaking Lions.
Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah, I didn't even consider them.
They're gonna be right there.
Yeah, I left the Chiefs off, and you left the Dolphins off. Yeah. For the Lions, you think the Dolphins are better or worse than the Lions?
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah.
Well. Okay, so let's talk about the Cowboys, though, because they are interesting.
Yeah.
And
I've had some injuries. They had a really bad performance, which obviously...
The injuries are the reason they're not in my top 5.
Threw people off the set.
It's Diggs and that Parsons injury that happened last week. It's just... They're relying so much on their defense right now, and their offense has looked completely impotent. Like... Their crowd is cheering when they score in the red zone because they haven't scored in the red zone in 25 straight trips. It has not been great. So I think the defense has been making up for a lot of flaws, and then they're getting these injuries sort of clustered on the defense, and it makes me nervous in general. So that's why
to me it's coaching
there. Well,
Mike McCarthy last
that is literally the elephant in the room.
Outcoached by a bowling ball of a man I just saw get worked on Monday Night Football with almost 2 weeks rest because they played Thursday.
And the no Kellen Moore thing.
I just think that Mike McCarthy is immeasurably bad in the playoffs, and so I have a hard time seeing them as a serious threat.
Do you think we could get the House to vote him out too?
Listen,
the House should have control over the Dallas Cowboys as America's team. Yeah. If you're gonna claim it, the House should have. And if your coach happens to have the same name as the House Speaker, who gets historically voted out in a House vote, you should have to fire that coach. That should become a rule. Can we make that a law? Dan? Get on the people. Yeah. All right, Dan's nodding, so NFL we're going to make that happen.
Pacifying white extremism for quite some time, so I see why this should be any different. I think this should be no problem for those guys.
Oh, God. All right. Well.
So now I think we can get into the 49ers. So they are stupid talented.
Yeah, they're
really
good.
As a owner of Deebo Samuel on my fantasy team, he did almost nothing in this game because Ayuk and Christian McCaffrey just torched people. And there's going to be a game where Deebo just absolutely wrecks the team because they're selling out. Kittle is going to have a 3 touchdown. Like, they're just so talented everywhere. And then you're like, well, surely with that much talent on offense, that defense must be a sieve back there. Oh my God, no. They probably have the best defensive lineman in Bosa. They have Armstead next to him. And then, they've got probably the most athletic linebacker in there as well, in the middle. So with Kendrick. So yeah, it's going great against them. They're unbelievable. And short of injury, I don't see anyone within a country mile of this team right now. There's no one I wouldn't take them up to 6 points against in the NFC or the AFC.
You say short of injury, and you sort of say it like fleetingly.
Like a team who didn't have a quarterback.
But saying playoffs. Short of injury about the 49ers is sort of saying like, well, if the sun rises tomorrow, they're probably going to have an injury. So it's just, to me... I just
mean meaningful.
I know. I guess what I'm saying is, like, to me, it's who gets injured and when. And how bad is it? Yeah. Because it's going to happen. I mean, the way that they run, it's clear to me that, like, it's a very Mike McDaniel. They're from the same school. Like, it's a lot of motion. It's a lot of movement.
I mean, Shanahan ran McDaniel.
Yeah. And that's just like, that's what the offense is based around. And it also increases the amount of risk that you have because your guys are moving faster. Like, the whole point is that they have 3 yards of movement by the time they're even touching the line of scrimmage. Yeah. And they're just fast as hell. So, like,
and it's Ayuk, it's
soft tissue stuff happens. Like, it just happens. And I do blame the training staff, and I can't believe, like, I would be firing those people every single minute if I was him, because I just can't believe that it continues to happen. But I think is the year that they truly have a complete team. Yeah. There aren't holes. They're sort of deep. Purdy looks great. Yep. He looks exactly like what they need. He's not doing anything more than what they're asking him to do, and that's...
And the longer Darnold gets to sit under the Shanahan can just be like, hey, when Purdy inevitably gets hurt, I just think tell Sam you where
Darnold
to throw
is
it
going to be filthy.
In your helmet. Yeah.
I think Sam Darnold would be
There's someone doing the
absolutely
thinking
insane.
for him when he gets scared of all those ghosts out there. Then Shanahan's going to be like, hey, dude, no problem. There's no ghosts. Just throw it down the middle.
I think we could
They talked about him doing that with Garoppolo.
Are you ready for a great analogy?
Yeah.
I think we could have an Osweiler situation on our hands with Purdy, where Shanahan offloads him. The Houston Texans, in this scenario, they wouldn't do it because they just drafted C.J. Stroud, but
the best rookie
who looks unbelievable. But they pay him $56 million, and everybody's pissed in San Francisco. Like, Broncos fans were pissed at Osweiler. Like, you let the franchise walk away. And Shanahan's like, I don't think so.
We had to get those Trey Lance draft picks back somehow, baby. Yeah. Like,
and you just have the next guy sitting there. Yeah. So I just have a lot of faith in Shanahan. And to your point, barring how serious this injury is and who it happens to, I think they have to be your favorite, right? Like, if you're not talking about them,
they look like the Spurs the year the Spurs came back after the Ray Allen injury, where you're like, hey man, they're really pissed right now, but they got to settle down at some point. Hey man, they still look really angry out here.
It's June, and
you're
like, uh-oh.
Oh my God, they keep getting angrier. So yeah, like, I think they could be just a building trying. And the other thing, to your point, is, I mean, they are going to wrap that thing up. I think best record wise, I think they're going to wrap it up sooner rather than later, and they can start resting. guys and protecting themselves from injury, I think.
Yeah.
But
it's going to be interesting.
maybe you were more inspired by that Seattle performance than I was versus...
I wasn't going to bring it up independently, but my Gino rant is looking just better and better because that man is truly just...
I mean, he threw for a touchdown, but so did Drew Lock in half the time.
Hey, okay.
I mean,
Lock looked terrible. First of all, did you watch any of that game?
I didn't think he looked bad when he threw the thing down the sideline right to former Bronco Noah Fant, who then was rumbling, bumbling, and stumbling for 6 points.
I wasn't going to twist the knife again, but since you just are bringing up all my sore points, how does it feel for former Bronco Noah Fant and him to hook up for that touchdown? And we just spent so much time talking about the 49ers organization, which are run by former Bronco John Lynch and former Broncos son of head coach Mike Shanahan. So a lot of former Broncos connections, and Mike McDaniel, as we've noted a number of times. How does it feel to have all of those people just having unbelievable success around the league and have Sean Payton and Russell Wilson as your quarterback and head coach?
It's kind of like what I imagine you feel like if you see your ex like walking by on the street. You're just looking down at your apartment and you're like, man, wow, she looks like she's doing great. Man, that guy is so rich and handsome. Man, what a fella. And then you're just sitting there and there's like a little bit of a brown stain on your underwear. And you just woke up at 1 p.m. and you're like, I get it why she left. I'm happy for her. Honestly, like she doesn't want to be here in this poop-filled environment.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
You're happy for them.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, you knew they couldn't stay with you.
Yeah.
You can't stay with poopy diaper guy. You know what I mean? And that's us.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're a tender soul, Ryan, but you wouldn't stay with poopy diaper guy.
No.
See, that's what I'm saying. So yeah, that's about how it feels.
Okay, well, that is way sadder than what I was hoping you would say.
Well, you asked. I wasn't going to bring it up independently.
So sorry, man. I'm sorry that you feel that way. That is really tough. But that's really tough.
Sometimes you look in the mirror and you're like, "There's poop stains." All right, and that's how it feels right now. Yeah, they're everywhere. There's so much poop. Vance Joseph is throwing it out of the diaper. He's in there just popping out. It's wild times. All right, Ryan. So those are our top 5 here. What team, though, if you had to bet right now, you're going to win the Super Bowl? We've talked about the kind of injury history of teams, kind of projecting them forward can always be tough. So they can be in your top 5, outside of your top 5. Who right now would you say, hey, if you got a little $5 burning a hole in your pocket because you won it this weekend on the Broncos over, Kyle, I think you could sprinkle it right here and maybe it'll come home to roost in a few months, better than ever.
I'm gonna give you 2.
Okay.
The first one is a cash out possibility. So if you're betting on DraftKings, like I like to do,
well, because they sponsor the podcast along with Hims, and I forget the other made-up sponsor we had.
I think it was just Hims.
Okay, great.
But this is one of those ones where I think the value that you're going to get eventually is pretty good because this team is probably going to make the playoffs, I think, in my opinion. I'm not giving up. And they have an elite quarterback. And you're getting them at a price that would have seemed impossible preseason. Do you have a guess at what team I'm going to say?
The Bengals.
Yes. They're plus 3,000 right now to win the Super Bowl. So to me, that's like you're taking value there, right? So this is a cash out option where they could go on an 8-game winning streak, and now this is actually now plus 800, and DraftKings is offering you $30 on your $5 bet. You cash that sucker out, no sweat. You made $25. My actual answer to this question, in terms of like in my mind's eye, I like to do this. Like in your mind's eye, I particularly like it in the NBA because I think the celebration just sticks with me much longer. But who can you picture actually raising the Lombardi Trophy on the stadium or in, Vegas this year?
Yep.
So to me, that's Lamar Jackson. and the Baltimore Ravens. They are plus 1,600 right now on our friends from DraftKings. That is an insane number. Lamar has been balling. I also like his MVP odds. This guy is, he is playing out of his mind. The Ravens have looked okay. They're still figuring out their defensive identity, but they have Harbaugh as a coach. So, they're going to figure that stuff out, I think. And this team, I think, is very dangerous moving into the playoffs. So, what about you? Do you have any reaction to my Ravens pick there?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I just don't think that their health is going to allow them. They're already losing so many cornerbacks, so many defensive players.
49ers like they're manna from heaven, and you're talking about the Ravens' health.
Well, they don't have all their starting corners out.
Yeah.
So
no, it is. It's.
If I was seeing Marlon Humphrey out there lining up, I'd feel pretty darn good about the Ravens because I'd think that they are going to be unbelievable defensively.
It's also a team that is. I hate to bring this up because we know how I feel about him, but this is a Pat Surtain. If anybody is going to make just a wild offer for a cornerback, not necessarily that cornerback, but could you imagine that happening? You would think about the Ravens in a completely different light. So
if we, for some reason, fell down, hit our head on every sink in our house, and then dialed up the Ravens and offered them our best player, well, I think that would change how I feel about the Ravens.
I think they're making the call. But
okay, did we just hit our head multiple times without a helmet on?
I'm telling you, I would not expect. It's not necessarily even about that name, but if they got even an elite corner, good corner, you would think very differently about them.
Yeah.
So I think there's value there. That's where I'm finding value on the board. That's
if
what I'm
they're
saying.
Interested, Damari Mathis is available. If they want to upgrade that room instantly,
who's the safety?
Look
that
at
keeps decapitating people. They can take him too. We'll throw him.
If someone's pissing you off, just put Kareem in, baby.
Yeah.
They'll both exit at the same time.
I hate this Broncos team. Could I just say that? They are truly just not fun to root for.
Jaleel is basically the most fun guy. And Mims is fun too.
Mims is fun.
Both of those are just electric. When they get the ball in your hands, you're kind of excited.
And if they had Caleb Williams next year, if you're talking about Caleb Williams throwing it tomorrow, you're not going to win a lot of games, but it's going to be exciting as hell. Yeah. So that's what Broncos fans have to be rooting for. Even a Drake May, get any competent rookie in here. Just please make it happen. And let me become a Broncos fan again. Bring me back. Home. Bring me back.
Bring Ryan home. So I guess I'm going to stay in the same vein as your Ravens, though. A quarterback who has kind of been crapped on for his playoff performance, but has accomplished almost everything else in the league. I'm going with Josh Allen and the Bills. We talked about him in my top 5. Plus 800. I think it's wild that the Chiefs are favored more than them. I think that's absolutely ridiculous.
The Chiefs,
I think
this
Bills is wild.
Not to just interrupt here, but just to go through it. Chiefs plus 550, 49ers plus 550, Eagles plus 750, and then the Bills at 800.
Yeah.
So it's not only that they're just they're plus 750. It's a pretty big difference here, which I agree with you. It does not make any sense.
No, I just think this Bills team, I think people are scared off by the Josh Allen interception game, which, like you said, is just part of the Josh Allen experience. And then some truly bad luck. They win that Chiefs game 90 times out of 100. The Chiefs are down and getting the ball with 13 seconds left. That's ridiculous that a touchdown was scored there. They should have went to and won the Super Bowl 2 years ago, probably. Now they didn't, so that's part of their history, and obviously that's a tortured fan base. But I think they are overwhelmingly talented, and I love their stats. The Ravens are this way as well, one of your picks. But teams that can rush for and just get there. The Ravens have the Ravens and the Bills have one of the lowest blitz rates and one of the highest pressure rates this season. So they're both getting home, and that's so important in the playoffs when all you play are good quarterbacks who, if you obviously blitz, they'll find the hole rather than Zach Wilson or whoever you get to play during the regular season. So, yeah, they would be my one there. Before we get out of here, we wanted to transition quickly to the Nuggets. Ryan, we had media day. The Lakers said how when the Nuggets announcer guy said things at the parade, that really motivated them to play good. Not when they were actually getting their ass beat up and down the floor for 4 games. That didn't motivate Anthony. But Anthony was motivated.
It's funny to me that Bruce Brown literally said that during a press conference that Anthony Davis was like shook by Nikola Jokic, and he didn't mention that.
Yeah.
It was immediately after the game. Bruce Brown was like, "Oh, he had that man just quaking in his boots,"
and said, "We're going at D'Angelo Russell every time."
Yeah.
Someone who you brought in, he was like, "We're just trying to find Russell and just go at him."
No, it's wild. The Lakers.
So
honestly,
the Lakers had a spicy one, but the Nuggets, I thought it was pretty. Seems like, I mean, and obviously you hope this for a championship team, but seems like everyone's happy to be back. Seems like everyone's striving to achieve more within their role, but isn't necessarily pushing back on their role. Like Porter was even like, I'm not sure if my role will expand. He's like, but I can do better even within my role.
No, he even went a step further than that. So to be clear, I went in this afternoon. I didn't have anything to do. I was just sitting around the house. So I watched almost all of the full interviews from the main press conferences. And then I watched the little things that you can find. And he expressly said, like, I don't want my role to change. Like, somebody asked him, what have you been working on in the summer? And he was like, well, I really want to make sure my handle's tighter. And they're like, okay, well, how do you see that working in a game? Like, is it attacking closeout? And he basically was like, they're just little moments. He's like, there are little times in transition or in the flow of the game where I can use that. And I'm like, my God, we could be filthy if that's actually true. Like, if these guys are actually just getting better and willing to accept exactly what their role is, there is a possibility that this team is better than what it was. Yeah. The bench is the thing that jumped out to me. And obviously, like, if you've been following the Nuggets, you look at this second unit and you don't really know what it looks like. It's really hard to figure out the rotations. The forwards are very weird right now. You've got like a lot of clustery. I mean, they're talking big game about Peyton Watson. Lots of compliments from Peyton Watson, from the vets, from the coaching staff. Apparently, he's been here a lot like over the
active guy over the summer.
He's been here a lot over the summer. So it's just going to be interesting. And Michael Malone said it in his press conference. He said, I'm very excited over camp to figure out what the second unit looks like. So I don't think anybody really knows what it's going to look like. The two things that I took away from it that I'll sort of highlight, a couple of things I already said, but Reggie Jackson and Justin Holiday, they were the two that came out to the podium together. And I didn't realize the connection that they had. They've been working out together since they were rookies in the league. Justin has been in the league 11 years. So this is a guy who's been through a lot. He's seen it all. They were talking about his experience with Sabonis and how that could potentially influence his play with Jokic. And I hadn't really thought about that. And to be honest, I'm not sure how many minutes Justin Holiday is going to get. But they did ask him about the conversations that he had with the Nuggets front office in his signing with the Nuggets. And he was like, the thing that I appreciated is that they told me that I was going to have to earn everything. He's like, I'm not promised anything. He's like, they weren't saying like, this is going to be this, and this is going to be this, and this is going to be that. It's just straight up like, you're going to have to figure it out. And I think he appreciated that, and I like that he appreciated that, where he's like, I'm going to fit in where I get in. Like, and he knows that he's on the best team, And on the Reggie Jackson,
also knows that Mike Malone hates rookies with a fiery passion. Yeah. And if you're even within 20% of Jalen Pickett, he will absolutely pay you over him in the playoffs. You can be part of that 8-man rotation, and you can get that Bruce Brown playoff bump, baby. And then you can get that check out there after Jokic hooks you up with wide open 3 after wide open 3.
I will say that there was no mention of any of the rookies. I don't think I heard any vet or Michael Malone say any rookie's name. It was Christian Brown. It was Peyton Watson. Somebody asked about Zeke Naji.
Yep.
Like, they're the normal people, and I think everybody gets excited after the draft for those young guys to come in, and I think we just got to temper those expectations. The second thing that I think was interesting is the Michael Malone piece of things. I'm not sure that everybody else on the team is ready for how fiery Michael Malone is about to be for the first 2 months of the season. Because this guy is talking about, like, I mean, he is already in mid-season form in terms of just grumpiness already. I'm like, you haven't even seen them play, and you're talking shit about them already. Like, I love it, right? It's what makes him a good coach, and I think the guys appreciate it.
Rage timeouts are going to be flowing early season, baby.
And all he could say was like, we'll see tomorrow who's been in the gym working and who hasn't been. But he has that fire to be like, I want to repeat. Like, this is not, and there was a lot of hunter versus hunted language going on. And even Jokic said, like, in an NBA TV interview, that we have to be the hunter. So I think they're coming into the season with the right mindset. Everybody's saying the right thing.
That's the only part of the meeting he woke up for.
Yeah.
He was Mike was talking for a long time, but I did catch something about hunting. We're going hunting, I guess. I don't know. I mean, it should be a good time. It's fine.
Jokic and Murray truly, I mean,
they were exuding just like, hey, everybody can come for us this season, but we're going to mess all of you up.
The contempt that they hold for those press conferences is truly something that should be documented, because, I mean, you've got AD and LeBron, like making news and saying platitudes, and you've got Jokic and Murray up there giving yes and no answers to questions, and you're like, well, this is why nobody wants to talk about us. Like, and I love it, right? It's like the old Orange Crush days where the offensive line wouldn't talk to the media, and you were fined if you did. Like, there's something old school about it. So it was a fun media day. I really hope that the Nuggets beat the Lakers' ass by 25 points on opening night.
That'd be like manna from heaven to me, Ryan. And Lord knows, after watching however many Broncos games I will have seen by then, I'll deserve it.
I want Jokic to give Anthony Davis the ring after the season, or after the game, and just be like, yeah, well, we got our rings and I beat your ass. Talk to me now.
Yeah, I fear for us in that first game, so it would make me really excited.
I'm terrified. I think we're going to get our asses beat. Oh, yeah. But to flip the script would feel so good.
Jokic does not care.
No.
Anthony Davis is, I don't doubt he's been working out with a Jokic, pillow on his bed that he lies down on. To practice resting 3 times a day so he doesn't hurt himself lying down.
Somebody asked Jokic, like, how many times do you touch a basketball during the off season? Because, like, it's clear they work out, right?
Yeah.
But, how many times do you touch a basketball?
Out there for young Jokic.
And he goes, a few times. And Jamal's sitting there, he goes, never. He hasn't. Don't lie. Like, you haven't.
Yeah.
So it's, I love the dynamic. The team seems to be in a great place.
Yeah.
And you know what? When I was, getting stressed about the season, we're less than 15 days out. We're about 2 weeks away from the home opener. When I was getting stressed out, I told myself, well, we will always be champions throughout the entire year. Like, the amount of times we're going to be getting beat by a team that we should be getting beat by, and some fan is going to say something wild to us. And I'm going to look back at him and point at that banner in the stadium and say, don't talk to me. You are not allowed to talk to me, actually. This is a champions only section, and you're not allowed to speak.
Yeah. Bend the knee. That's the next great DNVR. The shirt there. If you get a Lakers
don't give
beating
them free
on
argument.
Opening night, you have LeBron handing the crown to Jokic, and you have Bend the Knee t-shirt. It's just a great shirt. All right. I don't have anything else there. I'm excited to have some good things in my life again, like the Avs and the Nuggets. And I must say, I have reached the point in the season where I just think how bad the Broncos are is really funny. So even during the comeback, I was just laughing hysterically. And my wife was very confused because our son was napping. So she's just laying next to me and she was like, are they doing good or bad? Like, she's like, are you like emotionally unstable and just laughing to yourself? Or is this going well? What's going? And I'm like, I mean, I guess they're winning, but it's in the least competent way possible. It's
Dan
hilarious.
and I was watching your dogs, and Dan and I were watching the game together, and we bet. I told Dan at halftime of those early games, I was like, one of these people is coming back. And I bet on the Giants or no, who did we bet on? The Raiders. The Raiders, too. The Raiders, the Saints. And then we took the Broncos later.
1 for 3,
and
baby.
we made a handsome amount on the Broncos. So
It's beautiful thing.
Those plus 600 wins just keep trickling in over the weekends, and we're going to take them to the bank.
Yeah, everything's going to be okay. Well, thank you for joining us this week on the Blues4 Brothers, and we will talk to you next week after a huge Broncos win, shutting down a potent Zach Wilson and the Nathaniel Hackett. We'll talk to you then, folks.
Fins up.
Not that.
Bye.